Welcome back, everybody. My name is Tucker, and today's a continuation of my season preview series for the upcoming 2019-20 NBA season, and this one is covering the Memphis Grizzlies. Going into this season, the Grizzlies now have one of the most intriguing young duos in the entire league in Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr., and I cannot wait to see those two play together. Triple J was one of my favorite rookies in last year's draft class, and then last season as well, just as he progressed through the season. I'm really excited about what he's going to become, and I love Ja Morant as well. And like I said, I'm really excited to see them play. And the front office has also done a great job, specifically this offseason, of adding even more young pieces that fit their timeline and are good complementary pieces to that young duo. And as long as they work out, as long as those two players progress and turn into the kind of guys that I think they're going to, this is definitely a team that is on the path to, in the future, not this season, but in the future, be back into playoff contention like they were for so many years during the Mike Conley and Marc Gasol days. But first, let's talk about some additions. The first is Jae Crowder, who they acquired in the Mike Conley trade, which I will get to later. He's just going to be a really good 3-and-D player for this team, someone that was really good in Utah just as a complementary option, could guard, could shoot, and I think you could see a similar situation in Memphis. He's been a little bit up and down in his career in terms of which teams he was actually good with. Initially wasn't great with the Mavs, then he went to the Celtics and was really good, went to the Cavs, wasn't good, but that was not a great situation at all, and then he went to Utah and was actually an important piece of their team. So I'm looking forward to seeing how well he fits in Memphis, because I think he could be an important mentor for the younger players on this roster. Next up in terms of additions is a player that if you watched any of my videos in the past, I'm not a huge fan of, but they did take a flyer on Josh Jackson from the Suns. He should get some minutes in this wing rotation just because they're a little bit thin at that spot. So maybe this is a situation in which he could potentially in a little bit more responsibility than what he had in Phoenix, although they weren't very good either. So he got plenty of opportunities, but maybe being traded so soon after being drafted 4th overall will be a mindset changer for him. It can actually be something for Memphis, but I'm not holding my breath currently. Next up is Tyus Jones, who kind of takes over the backup point guard duties from Dillon Brooks, who the team traded away to Dallas and they acquired in the Marc Gasol trade and during the middle of last season. Jones won't be as good of a defender as Wright was, simply because he doesn't have the same kind of size, but as a playmaker and as a shooter, should be good off the bench for Memphis. It was a good pickup for them, just again to replace what Wright brought them last year. Moving on to a very long list of additions compared to most teams for this offseason for the Grizzlies is Andre Iguodala. I'm not convinced that the plan is for him to really be on the active roster that much and actually have him play. He's probably more of just a trade piece at this point. They've been exploring trades for him basically since they acquired him from Golden State, and he should net them something to a contender at some point in the middle of the season, but I did need to mention him here as an addition, despite him really not having too much of an impact on the court for this team. And now we get to the draft, and the obvious one is Ja Morant. He's going to be a high-level pick-and-roll playmaker right off the bat, in my opinion. He has size, he has length, he has athleticism, he has quickness, he has everything you want out of a lead guard now in the NBA. I think defensively, he's going to really shine once he kind of learns the NBA game. He's going to struggle with efficiency like most rookie point guards do. He's probably going to have too many turnovers. He's probably not going to shoot super well from the floor, but I think the promise is definitely going to be there as a playmaker, as a passer, as a scorer, in ball screen combinations with any of their bigs on the roster, specifically Jaren Jackson Jr. Really excited to see how he plays in the NBA, so I think he's going to be good. And the other guy that kind of flew under the radar at draft time but kind of blew up in Summer League is Brandon Clark's a versatile front court option, can shoot it a little bit, can rebound a little bit, good defender. Not 100% sure how that Summer League success is going to translate, but it's certainly not a bad thing that he showed so well in Summer League, and he should certainly get some front court minutes on this team. And then you get to another addition from the Mike Conley trade, and that is Grayson Allen, and he's a really interesting case just because he never really got a ton of opportunity in Utah for whatever reason, whether that be because he just wasn't that good or because they were constantly chasing the playoffs and didn't really have the time to develop him. He should get more opportunities in Memphis, should be a good shooter and a shooting specialist, but in terms of him being anything else, that'll kind of be determined in this next year or two in Memphis, so he's definitely someone to keep an eye on. And then last up, Miles Plumlee and Solomon Hill. These are just guys that they got in salary dumps. Not a ton to mention here. They should be a part of the rotation at certain points to provide them depth, but that's about it. Moving on now to subtractions, and obviously the biggest one is Mike Conley. And you could certainly make the argument that maybe it would have been better for Memphis to keep him as a mentor for Ja Morant at the point guard spot, but I think that also goes both ways in terms of just clearing the way for Morant to kind of figure it out on his own and have as many minutes as possible and kind of learn on the job. Obviously, Conley is a big loss for them from a veteran leadership standpoint. They did get some assets back, and it was certainly the right move, but don't discount how good he was for them last year, especially in the beginning of the season, as you're looking forward to their season this year. And then the only other subtraction that I'm really going to mention here is one that I talked about a little bit earlier, and that's Dillon Brooks. Like I said, they kind of plug in Tyus Jones in his spot here, but if you watch the Dallas Mavericks season preview, you know that I do like Dillon Brooks' game as a combo guard guard, can play the one of the two, has good size, good defender, still needs to work as a shooter, but he is at least solid, and they'll definitely miss that, specifically his contributions and versatility on the defensive end compared to Jones. Moving on now to the depth chart, and there's three really good pieces here for me. Obviously, you've got Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., and then Jonas Valanciunas as well. In terms of the other parts of the lineup, there certainly are some question marks, whether Dillon Brooks is going to have a bounce back year, and then Kyle Anderson as well. And then you can see the players coming off the bench. Certainly a good amount of versatility here, specifically with Morant having good length, Jaren Jackson Jr. being able to play either the 4 or the 5. I think the Valanciunas deal is actually kind of a bargain that they signed him to this offseason. He was really good for them in the few games that he played with the team after he was moved from Toronto. So there's a lot of things to like here. However, as I mentioned earlier, their depth as well as their starters at the 2 and 3 spots are definitely questionable when you're relying on Josh Jackson and Grayson Allen to come off the bench and give you a boost at the 2 and the 3 spots. And then, like I said, even the starters aren't that great, but this isn't necessarily a team that's looking to compete for the playoffs or anything this upcoming season anyway. So that's not a huge deal, but in terms of areas of improvement for this team moving forward, I think they definitely want to get a high-level wing or a high-level guard off of Morant and off of Jaren Jackson Jr. and then Valanciunas as well. Moving on now, I've only got one player to watch in this season preview, and that is someone that I mentioned briefly earlier, Grayson Allen. Like I said, I think this is a season that could potentially tell us where his ceiling is at and what he could potentially be as either a shooting specialist or as a scorer and just all-around offensive player. If he continues to struggle to even find his shot this upcoming season in what should be more opportunities than what he got in Utah, then that kind of tells us all we need to know about Grayson Allen, at least until he proves us otherwise. But if he starts showing some other signs of life in his game, specifically an overall game outside of just shooting, then maybe he's another piece of this really interesting young core for Memphis and could potentially be their starting 2 of the future, depending on how the draft picks and everything work out. So I think this is a really important year for him, potentially getting a good second contract from Memphis, or just having his rookie contract run out and just taking flyers on a couple of different teams as he winds down what could potentially be a pretty short career in the NBA. So there's really a wide spectrum of potential outcomes here for Grayson Allen, which is why I think he's definitely a player to watch for this team. Next up now is expectations, and I think this is going to be one of the best League Pass teams in the league. I think that they're going to be really exciting and really interesting to watch, but they're not a playoff contender to me. The West is too tough. They're still too young. The Morant thing is still an uncertainty in terms of how he's going to transition. I don't really think that it's a question mark in terms of how good he's going to be long term, but I think initially he's going to have some struggles in terms of efficiency and things like that. But they're certainly going to be exciting to watch, specifically when Jaren Jackson Jr. gets the opportunity to play at the 5 spot more, and him and Morant are developing that chemistry in the pick and roll. They're going to be brought down a little bit just by a lack of floor spacing generally. Like I said, their guards and wings outside of Morant are not great. So that could be an issue for them, and defensively, young teams always struggle as well. But again, just a really exciting team. I would put them pretty highly on my League Pass rankings in terms of teams that I would want to watch on a night-to-night basis, depending on who they're playing on League Pass. I'm really excited about this team, even though, like I said, my expectation is not that they're going to make the playoffs. And in terms of predictions, I think they're going to be right about at the same spot that they were last year in terms of wins, between 30 and 33. The reason being is just they got off to such a good start last year. Everybody was healthy, everybody was playing well, and then things kind of fell apart, and that good start allowed them to get to 33 wins. And I think it's a little bit ambitious to expect them now without Conley to get all the way to 33. So I'm kind of on the lower side there. Somewhere around 30 wins, I think, is a good expectation. But them getting to that point, them getting to those 30 wins, shows you how much of a fan I am of Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. And I'm really excited to see the kind of leap that he takes, specifically Jackson Jr. Just as an overall player. Like, we know he's got some shooting ability. We know that he's a really good defender, someone that is just extremely versatile. But if we could see a little bit more on-ball stuff from him, attacking the rim, maybe working out of the high post a little bit, attacking closeouts, I think that would be some really interesting stuff for them to try out. Just kind of feel out where they're going to be at with him moving forward and see if he's a legit, like, first scoring, second scoring option on a good team, or if he's just going to be a really good, versatile defensive player, because I think that's kind of his floor even at this point. So again, I would keep an eye on this team, even though I don't think that they're going to be making the playoffs. And there you have it. That is going to be the end of today's video previewing the Memphis Grizzlies upcoming 2019-20 NBA season. If you missed any of my previous videos, including the season previews that I've already covered, I'm going to be cranking these out at least for a week over the next handful of weeks leading up to the NBA regular season so that I can be ready. Then definitely be sure to check those out. I've done, I believe, at the release of this video, like 6 or 7 of them. You can definitely check those out, and I would really appreciate it. But once again, my name is Tucker. I hope you all enjoyed today's video, and I will see you all next time.